Welcome to episode number 7 of the Golden Point podcast. We are back with regulars, folks, and myself. And, we're just going to do a quick summary of the Vegas games. Then after that, we're going to talk about round 1. And then we're going to move on to fantasy and then the fan questions. So, why don't we start off with the first game in Vegas, which was the Raiders and the Warriors. That was 30-8. The Raiders won that game. Great performance from the Raiders, especially Xavier Savage. Masterclass performance from him, scoring one try, and I think he got about 70 points fantasy. I believe it was 70. 69, okay, so one off. But yeah, other than that, Raiders just played really well, and they could potentially be a threat for the season. Definitely make the 8. And yeah. Do you have anything to say about the game, folks?
Yeah, the Raiders were surprising. I did tip the Warriors. Unfortunately, I think I went 0 for 2 in tips in Vegas. It's all right because I got lucky at the star instead. Yeah, I think I expected more from the Warriors. Luke Metcalf, disappointing fantasy wise, pulling out 21 points. I think he was at minus something at one point. So a bit of a disaster class there for the Warriors. RTS looked like he was the only player that showed up. Um, Other than that, just all round disappointing for the Warriors. Really good start to the season for the Raiders. Potential to make the 8. I feel like every year everyone tips Raiders to the spoon and then they pull out some monster performances. So congratulations to the Raiders on that one. Anyways, moving on to the second game of Vegas, the Panthers and the Sharks. As a Cronulla fan, all round, I'm not disappointed. It was a great game. I think from a neutral perspective, it would have been an entertaining game to watch. I think it proves that the Sharks are up there this year. They can go head to head with the best. Um, but once again, Panthers are just too strong. Prove that they're going to be in the running for their 5th premiership in a row.
But yeah, other than that, the Panthers and the Sharks, great game, to be honest. Good to watch. Panthers pretty much dominated that game. I mean, Sharks are going up against a team that's won 4 times in a row, so to pull off a score of 22-28 is still pretty good from the Sharks. And yeah, that's all to be said about that game.
Moving on to the Broncos and the Roosters. Unfortunately, we had a bit of technical issues filming, so
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
currently filming on Friday, so this game's already happened. As expected, the Broncos were gonna absolutely blow out the Roosters, and statistically, Roosters had 50 put on them, so they can no longer win the premiership already out of it in round
If you're
one.
conceding 50
I
to points, yeah,
think
it's not good.
Broncos are clearly going to be back to the top this year. I think Rob Toyer and Sam Smith fantasy wise were great. Rob Toyer put up a 60. I did have to shuffle my team around to loop him in. If you guys don't know what looping is, we'll talk about it a bit more in the
Damn.
fantasy section of this episode. But other than that, it's pretty simple. Broncos blowout.
That game was pretty unfortunate for the Roosters fans. Broncos pretty much dominated the entire game, except for the start with Dom Young scoring the first try to open the game in the 6th minute. But other than that, they just pretty much gave up. I think there was an injury from Victor Radley as well.
Yeah,
Just before
unfortunate to
halftime.
say,
I'm not sure exactly what happened, but he was injured.
six
Yeah.
concussion in the last 4 seasons. So, really upsetting for Radley there. Just can't stay healthy.
Hopefully he's not out for the whole season, man.
Look, I think he might be looking at a possible medical or retire soon. He's just too many head knocks. So that guy needs to invest in some headgear. Moving on to tonight's games, we've got the Tigers and the Knights at 6 p.m. I do have the Knights winning this one. No Dream Buller or Staff Toa for this round. They should be back next week, so the reports say. I think Knights have enough firepower to get it over the line here. some big fantasy players. We have Kevin Ponga. I think 30% of us own him. I've got him in my team. Jerome Luai's first game as a Tiger will be interesting to see. And other big fantasy prospects, we have Terrell May and Alex Seyfarth, both being selected in a lot of teams. So they are definitely players to keep an eye on.
Moving on to the next game. This is also tonight, the Rabbitohs and the Dolphins at 8 p.m. Now, that game was set to be played in Redcliffe. Suncorp, yep. Due to the cyclone, I believe it's coming tomorrow, I think. Yeah, so they just moved it to Combank. That starts at 8 p.m. Not much news with the Dolphins, besides Wayne leaving to South.
We've got Nicarima and Mark Nichols have pulled out the game to stay back with their family in Queensland. So it'll be interesting when late mail comes out to see how the Dolphins reshuffle their side. I think Sean O'Sullivan comes in at 5'8" for Nicarima. And I believe Josh Kerr is coming onto the bench. In terms of the Rabbitohs, we see got some good fantasy potential here with Pete Mamazelis at hooker getting that start goal. And a big surprise is Lachlan Hubner getting that starting lock position, coming in at 250k, so it could prove to be a good cash cow. Moving on to the Saturday night games, we have the Dragons taking on the Bulldogs. A bit of a derby there. Popular opinion that they're going to be more Bulldogs fans than Dragons fans at that Strata Jubilee.
Maybe.
Bulldogs fans like to come out of hiding when they're doing good.
Exactly.
This game isn't really too fantasy relevant. There's not really. I don't think I have any Bulldogs or Dragons players in my team.
Not this season.
So not much fantasy analysis to go there, except maybe Jake Preston. A couple of people have him. But with Tupanua and Salmon on the bench, he could have reduced minutes, which people need to keep an eye on. Pretty stock standard game here. I think the Bulldogs will take it, but I do think it will be close.
Anyways, moving on to the next game. Also Saturday night, we have the Manly up against the Cowboys. Now, the lineup does look pretty good from both sides. We do have Tom Trbojevic starting in fullback, which is, you love to see him always starting there. And then, regulars, DCE in halfback, also captain, fucking amazing.
Brooks.
And who else do we have from the, what?
Luke Brooks,
yeah. He's also good. Who else do we have from the Manly side? We have Takiako. I think it's his debut as well, so that's going to be good from him.
Ruben Garrick. A lot of people have him selected with that dual position, coming in about 580k or
83,
maybe
583.
He'll be goal kicking, so hopefully Manly can get some points on the board for those Garrick owners. In terms of the Cowboys, we do have some good options. We have Jackson Purdue starting at center, 250k, so that's a good cash cow option. Along with Tom Duffy at halfback at 250k. If he can take control of that game a bit, get some good kick meters in, we could see a big score from him. And then at 595k, a couple of people have jumped on the John Bateman train. I'm not too sure about how it would go. I don't think he's someone you want to start with. I think if he starts to do well, maybe hop on him later in the season. But anyways, moving on to Sunday afternoon, last game of the week, we have the Melbourne Storm taking on the Parramatta Eels. Mitch Moses ruled out for 6 weeks with a foot injury. I think Melbourne steamrolled them in this one, unfortunately. I think Parra was shaping up for a good season, but it's just not to be. Fantasy-wise, we have Isaiah Yongi at 350k. He should score around the 40s or the 50s. Great attacking upside with points of value there. Cam Monster, 580k. Definitely some points of value there. Just depends on how Jerome Hughes is going to play this season. Couple of people hopping on Kalmatua Lungi. Tends to miss a lot of tackles, so don't think he's the greatest option. And then we have the cheapies Ronald Volkman and Riley Smith. Riley Smith might get some minutes at hooker. And Volkman, starting half back at 374K for the next 6 weeks, could be a potential good cash cow. However, I think Dylan Brown tends to take over in games where Mitch Moses isn't playing. So I don't think he will score too well. So I'm going to stay away from Volkman for now. Moving on into NRL fantasy, we do have quite a lot of cash cows this season. I think Hubner, Duffy, Purdue. Rob Toy proved himself last night with a big 61 points. As I spoke about earlier, had to do a bit of looping to get him in my team. I'll get Oscar to throw my team up on the screen
Yes, it's
somewhere.
going to be up
I
on the
run
screen
through.
now. You'll see his entire team revealed to all of you guys.
Now, I'll quickly run through what looping is and how you can loop. So essentially, you can see with my team, I had Stafford Toa in at center. He's not playing this week, so if you go down to my bench, you can see I've got Connor Watson, Alex Safer, Tom Gilbert, Lockie Hubner. None of them are centers, so it won't take any of their scores, which means it will go to the next available center, which, lucky for me, had Rob Toya above Jackson Purdue, which means I will be able to grab Rob Toya's points.
61 points.
I
That's good.
almost I almost made a mistake doing this, so I originally had Dylan Lucas in at center. I think I had Heath Mason. I was going to try to make some quick cash off him because I think he will score high 40s, running off the back of Luai. But I think Buller will be back next week. So essentially, what I did is I originally moved Dylan Lucas to the bench, sold Heath Mason for Staff Toa, put Toa in at center. But the issue with this was I forgot that Dylan Lucas is a dual position player. So I basically Toa's points would have gone down to Dylan Lucas and I would have ended up taking Tom Duffy's points instead. So I just had to make a quick swap, put Lucas in on the edge, and then Tom Gilbert to my bench. That way there are no other center options on my bench. Another easy way to loop, it doesn't have to be necessarily positional wise, is if you have a player that's not going to play that week, say they have a bye or something, pick 3 players you want in your emergency. Then that fourth interchange spot, so where Lockie Hubner is currently in my team, I would put someone that's not playing in that spot. And then essentially, so the way I have it set up now is Tom Duffy, Rob Toyer. I would usually swap that around if I was looping, and whatever player plays first, you put in the emergency 5 position, and then you put your other 3 in 6, 7, and 8. Now, what happens is that player that plays first, they'll get a score. If they get a score of 50, you just leave your team how it is and it automatically take that score. Say they score 10 points and you think a player in spot 6, 7, or 8 will do better. All you have to do is swap that player in for your interchange number 4 position. And it's as simple as that.
Yeah, so thank you, folks, for the expert advice. Moving on to the better person's team here. It's going to be on the screen now. I did have a few players that did pretty well, like Isaiah Yo getting 70 points, being vice captain there. I probably should have captained him, but I think Cleary is just a better option, more consistent. He did get 56 points, so I mean, that's still pretty good for Cleary. We also had Sandon Smith getting 44 points for his kicking duties, which is still pretty good. I don't think the Roosters will be scoring much this season, so he probably should sit around average 35 points per game probably. And yeah, my only weakness in my team is probably like Jack Howarth in the edge, but I don't really have any other players I could put in that position, so Howarth was the best option for me with my team, and probably Tara and Munro as well. Those two are probably like a bit weak that are starting, but other than that, like it's a pretty solid team.
Now, what you guys can do is you guys can leave a comment down below. We'll also do a poll on our Instagram story of who you guys think has the better team, either
Obviously
myself.
mine.
Um, and if you guys need any fantasy help, if something you're confused about, feel free to DM us on Instagram, and one of the boys from the team will do their best to get back to you, and try to give you a little helping hand.
Yeah, so moving on to the last segment of the video is fan questions. Now, we've got a few interesting ones. 80% of them are targeted to James. So I posted 2 lots. We'll go through some, not all of them, some of the first lot, and then move on to the second lot. So, first question from Jackson. Is James the best at predicting NRL tips?
Evidently not, considering I went 0 for 2 at Vegas.
In Vegas, man, what happened there? I got 2 from 2.
Oscar went 2 for 2. I
2
went
from
0
2.
for 2. So,
What happened? Fucking.
not really best there, unfortunately.
Yeah, anyways, next question. From Mike Cool, dogs to win the comp. No.
Absolutely
no.
not.
Absolutely not, mate.
Simple as that. I think there's probably a good 3, 4, maybe even 5 teams ahead of them. I think the Broncos have a better chance. The Panthers have a better chance. The Storm have a better chance. The Sharks have a better chance. And I'd probably say Manly have a better chance as well. Just not enough finals experience. Got bounced in the first round. And I do think they'll have a bit of second year syndrome. So I do see a bit of a drop off happening with the Doggies. I think they did overachieve slightly. But it will come with experience.
Yeah, anyways, well said, mate. Next question from Sam Fowler. Why is James gay?
That's a very good question. Don't know where Mr. Fowler's getting his intel from. Can't really answer that one because
Exactly,
don't know.
mate, because he's gay. Yep, you all know that. Anyways,
got one more here.
One more from
Onjo.
Yep.
The Golden Point podcast is truly one of the best out there. How do you consistently provide top content?
Okay, bit of a few spelling mistakes from Andrew Wong. Especially he did extension in school, so I don't know how the hell I don't know what happened there. Anyways, yeah. So how do we provide top content? I don't know.
Hard work.
Exactly, hard work.
Basically, Oscar texts me like every day, and he's like, "Hey,
yeah, I'm always onto him
today," and then I'm like, "Go away, Oscar, I'm busy."
Always onto him.
No, the key is we set a good schedule, make time for each other.
Once a week on Wednesday night.
Is, Anthony Bouchahine. Kind of dog the boys on that one.
Dog the boys. He's got UTS.
I did hear that if the Golden Point podcast reaches 200 followers, Anthony Bouchahine will make a return.
Well, maybe one day. But we're just gonna smash it out, me and folks. Potentially go to Magic Round. Who knows?
But be looking forward. We will be attending a few games. We'll be interviewing people at games. I think
yes.
The game we've got scheduled of the season will be, I think, round 3, Cronulla versus the Rabbitohs on the 22nd of March.
Yeah.
I think that will be our first appearance at a live game.
Potentially,
Unless we show up somewhere next week. But that is still in the works. But keep a lookout if you guys are going to be at the games. Oscar.
So out of the boys.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think next week most of the games are outside of Sydney. We have Newcastle, Auckland, Wollongong, Townsville, Canberra. 2 games at CommBank and then 1 at Belmore.
Yeah.
Make sure to give us some support because maybe Oscar and I will take a trip to Auckland, New Zealand, go to a Wars game,
maybe.
Go to Amy Park in Melbourne. We'll try get around.
Travel some business class, you know what it is, business class. Be with the players.
I think with our budget, it's a bit of economy, but and we're working out just a bit of a roadmap of some away games that you might find us at. So we'll make sure we share those details with you guys once it's confirmed, and keep a lookout for us at games if you guys want to be interviewed.
Yes. All right. See you guys. Thanks for tuning in.